Hello readers, I'm the Avid reader and today I'm reviewing Munich, written by Robert Harris in 2017. So Robert Harris, he likes to write historical fiction. This is a book about the 4 days of the Munich crisis. So we get to see the dynamics between Chamberlain and Hitler. And we get to see this through the perspective of two secretaries. So you've got the secretary in Britain who's called Levat, and you've got the secretary in Germany who's called Hartmann. And Hartmann is also part of the German resistance. The book opens with Legat having his anniversary with his wife, and then he's called back to the office. And he's just a minor secretary, but he sits in on cabinet meetings often as an aide to the prime minister. We get to see the dynamics between the prime minister and his different cabinet secretaries and advisors. So we've got ambassadors, ministers, we get to see leaders of the military also. And Chamberlain, he really wants to keep peace. So a thing that we forget often is that in September 1938, we were very close to start World War II. So it started in September 1939 in real life, but it almost started in September 1938, and Chamberlain was doing everything he could to keep peace, while Hitler, he really wanted war. The thing that Hitler says in this book, that the mistake that he made was actually making clear demands, because Chamberlain was so willing to compromise, to give in to these demands, that Hitler would look stupid if he actually said, oh no, even though you accepted my demands, I'm gonna start war anyways. So first, Hitler says that if the Sudetenland aren't given within this time, within 24 hours, then I will invade, and then there's another postponement of 24 hours, and Chamberlain gets a letter from Hitler saying basically, I hope you can convince the Czechs, otherwise I'm gonna basically invade. And I think Chamberlain gets to do some mediation through Mussolini. Mussolini tells Hitler basically to compromise, to find a peaceful solution, to have a meeting, and then it's agreed that they're going to have a meeting at Munich. And during this time you have something called the Oster Conspiracy. Now the Oster Conspiracy had to do with a bunch of officials in the German government, including a lot of military officers, who thought that Germany is not ready for war, we're gonna lose this war, if Hitler goes to war, we're gonna overthrow him in a coup, and they had the capacity to do it. And Chamberlain wants peace so much that it's hard for the Germans to communicate clearly with the British about coordinating to overthrow Hitler. On the second day you have Chamberlain making a speech in front of the parliament, and he basically says he's going to do everything he can for peace, and during his speech towards the end he gets a message from Mussolini, which states that Chamberlain, Hitler, Daladier and Mussolini should meet in Munich to discuss this problem, to settle it peacefully. And of course Chamberlain agrees, and he gets thunders of applause. And by the way, Legat and Hartmann, they went to college together in Oxford, but they haven't seen each other since 1932. Now the German resistance, they've given the Hossback memorandum to Hartmann, which is basically proof that Hitler wants to go to war. Both sides are arranging behind the backs of their leaders so that Legat and Hartmann can go to Munich and meet and exchange the necessary information. So the goal is for Hartmann to give the Hossback memorandum to Legat so he can present it to Chamberlain, or that Hartmann can present it to Chamberlain directly. But that's going to be hard with all the security and the Gestapo in Munich. So Hartmann travels by train to Munich with the Führer. Legat travels by plane to Munich with Chamberlain. Then you have a bunch of negotiations between Chamberlain and Hitler, and you've also got Daladier and Mussolini there. And during this thing, you've got a Czech delegation who is interned at their own hotel. They're not allowed to come and observe this meeting, which is taking place to determine the fate of their own country. So Legat, who's at the hotel, he meets these people, so he tries to arrange for them to listen in on this meeting, but it is not allowed. Hartmann basically tells, I think, forget it, it won't work. But Hartmann and Legat go out and have a coffee, and Hartmann discreetly passes over the Hossback memorandum to Legat, and Legat puts it in his room, and it's in an envelope. Hartmann wants to meet Chamberlain. Legat says it's going to be difficult. Legat is returning to where Hitler and Chamberlain is meeting. He's going to try to hand the Hossback memorandum, but the Munich agreement has already been settled. Chamberlain basically says no, not now, because his expression is clearly, I've just achieved peace, let me have my big day. During this time you've got some Gestapo guy trailing behind Hartmann, because they're trying to pin down on Hartmann that he's doing something wrong, but they can't. Later in the evening, Legat brings Hartmann to Chamberlain to show the Hossback memorandum to him, and Chamberlain basically said, young man, it's courageous what you're doing, but there are some principles that are more important than this paper, so I disregard you. And Hartmann leaves, and Chamberlain tells to Legat, I'm disappointed in you. So Legat thinks his career is over. That night, Legat hears a knock, and he finds Hartmann there. And Hartmann says, Meet me outside. They meet outside, they go for a drive. They stop quickly at Dachau, and Legat is not impressed. They continue on. They drive to the former girlfriend of Hartman, who is heavily sick and doesn't recognize them. And then on the way back, Hartman explains to Legat what has happened. So his girlfriend was a communist they went to college with, and they had once thrown an insult at Hitler. They were chased by a couple of SA guys. And when Hitler came to power, that girl who stopped being Hartman's girlfriend, well, she was part of the communist newspaper and tried to do some anti-government stuff. So she was thrown in a camp first, I think. Then she's let out again, and then she's thrown in again and treated much worse because she's a Jew. Hartman finds out about this. He uses his connections inside the foreign ministry to get her into a good hospital. And here you get to understand Hartman's motivation for why he's doing this thing, these acts of resistance. He sees how horrible the Nazi regime can be to some people. And the Husbeck memorandum disappears while Legat is taking a shower. At first we think the Gestapo is taking it, so Hartman thinks I'm done for. But it turns out to be some other British official who has taken it, and I think who gives it back to Legat, I'm not sure. So the Husbeck memorandum is still within British hands. The British return to Britain, and Chamberlain basically says, we've achieved peace, and he makes a big spectacle in front of the cameras. Everyone is happy, and they think everything is going to be fine, that war has been averted. But Hartman and Legat know the truth, that soon there will be war. And that's the book. So how would I rate Munich by Robert Harris? I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Robert Harris is a great author. All his books so far I've read are at least great, at least his fiction. And of those I've read 5 of them now. And here you can see that Robert Harris can write a political thriller even if it's not about Cicero or fatherland. It has Nazis in it, that's interesting. It has some conspiracy with the German resistance, that's also cool. Although that's more in the beginning of the book. And in this book, Chamberlain is more of a nuanced character. He wants to avoid war, and Hitler really wanted war, so in a sense, Chamberlain won with the Munich Agreement because he reached his goal while Hitler did not get his war as he wanted to. However, we see that Chamberlain is a stubborn old man and that he has his principles, that he will not bend even when shown contrary evidence. You get to see a bit of the culture of the German diplomats and the British diplomats, the dynamics around the Führer in Berlin, in Munich, and around the British Prime Minister in London. If you want to learn about the Munich crisis as some event which took place between diplomats, you should read this book. You don't actually hear that much about the Czechoslovakians themselves. It's more about minor diplomats and how they play into this situation. And of course you get to see Chamberlain and Hitler and how they act as people. So you understand more the feeling, the context of the people who were involved in this event. Another great book, Robert Harris. I should read more of his books probably. So this was the Avid Reader's review of Munich, written by Robert Harris in 2017. It got a 9 out of 10. I hope you readers enjoyed this book review, and I will see you readers next time.